So, just to kind of get through the motion today and understand basically what we are trying to do, a lot of people are trying in the business context today to set marketing strategy. And meanwhile, they set the marketing strategy, but they do not really track the result until they have spent too much money. And then they're like, oh, it doesn't work. So it's like, this runner who is in the first slide, where you kind of get started with your race. You know that this is the 100-meter to do, but what happened is that you have no clue how you're gonna track your time. So you didn't, put any watch. You don't know what the others are doing. You don't know what the average things this should be done, and so on. So it's kind of like, just taking a leap of faith. And unfortunately, we're not in a leap of faith approach anymore. So again, just to go back to the basic. So basic strategy is set up to do what? Many times I come across a lot of businesses, small, medium business, startups, corporate, where people are, okay, let's kind of set a strategy. But what are the strategy component? That's the point. So let's start just with making a recipe when you are in the kitchen or when you are doing something. So the marketing strategy is about managing your team, managing your agency. So if you have a team internally, that's perfect. I know Joshua, this is a case, but for many others, it's more startups. So they may only manage themselves, or some of others may also manage agencies, suppliers, contractors. So that is a very important part. The second one is the offline integration. Many people have the tendency of focusing only on the online, thinking that this is the successful things to do. And unfortunately, marketing is more than online. It's PR, it's brand positioning, it's offline, exhibition and events, and so on and so forth. So again, it's a very important let's say aspect to look for. So the first things may be that when you start making thinking of setting up your marketing strategy, maybe is to start having an audit, an external audit and an internal audit. Many people will talk about, oh, it's market intelligence. It's beyond market intelligence. Why? Because basically what people are focusing on is like, okay, I'm going to benchmark, or I'm going to compare what I'm offering versus what the others are doing. Yes, that's very important. What's your segment? What are you offering versus the others? What's your pricing? What's your positioning? What's your funding to push this company toward, right? But you have different aspects on how you do this market size. So you have the PESTEL, which is the political, economical, social, etc. trends analysis that you do. You have the segment market. Are you in the, for example, if you like kind of like the drinks, like Coca-Cola, like if you are in this segment market, what is the size of it? Are you in a sub-segment? So you need to make sure that you're understanding clearly where you're standing from. And then you have the SWOT analysis, you have the cage distance analysis. So, and you have obviously everybody's who has been in marketing or in business know the Porter's 5 forces competitive analysis. That doesn't mean that you need to do all of them. It means that you need at least to understand where you're coming from, where your market is, and what your market is going to. Because sometimes you think that you're going towards something, but it ends up that your market is requesting something else, which means that sometimes your product doesn't fit at all. So that's kind of maybe like the big challenges. The second challenge that I have seen many businesses, many startups, entrepreneurs facing is that they know what the market is about, but they have no clue when it comes to their company. How are they going to do that? They have a beautiful marketing strategy that has been set up. They know their target, but once it comes to the deployment and to the accomplishment of that, it's a big mystery. One, because they have no clue, or they haven't defined what we call your internal human resources. And by saying that is, who is the person who is going to coordinate that? Is it you? Is it your team members? What kind of information are you requesting from them? What are you asking them to do? What's the frame, the work frame you're requesting from them to work into? And the second part is the funding. Many companies and even corporate, sometimes they have this beautiful let's say the companies have this beautiful marketing strategy, but they do not have the funding that goes with it. So they have like a big budget thrown at but they have no clue for the time frame. Is it gonna be for the next 6 months, 9 months, 2 months, 1 week, depending? And I think that the last things that we need also to look at for is that when we do our internal audit, are we capable? Do we have a process? Because making the job, okay, you hire a marketeer or you get the budget and you tell them this is what I want, but do you have a process for this marketing person to communicate with the product, with procurement, with sales, which is one of the most important things, the finance? Because obviously, many times we see a lot of this issue happening from this is the basic, I have no clue what's going on, either internally or externally. And if we start sorting this out, this is your basic fundamental. Just imagine that you are throwing a big campaign marketing. You have done all the homework, you know what's going on. You ask your marketing person to start doing, or the agency to run this campaign. Boom, fantastic. We have more people than expected within the first week or the second week, whichever the time frame that has been set up. But what happened is that the sales, they cannot cope with it because you only have 2 sales and you have 1,000 people calling you every day. So this is what I'm saying in terms of process. It's very important for everybody to understand that you need to, to set the right time, frames to make sure that you are making the right choices at the right times, and you know what human resources, what funding, what process you're working with before going out to the world. Because once you are out of the world, there is no way back. It's just going to be like a curve of learning. And obviously you don't want to be seen as, oh, they're not responsive, or they're not answering my emails, or they took them 2-3 days. Remember, we are in a time where people expect a quick reply, a quick answer, a very good customer service. So that's kind of where I'm really focusing on to doing your internal audit and your external audit. To go back then to the next slide, sorry, I think I'm having a bit of, here we go. So again, I think that we are not reinventing the wheel, because reinventing the wheel is not possible unless we have an innovative things to bring to. But I'm always repeating the same things over and over, which are the SMART, goals. So specifically, make sure that you understand what do you want to do. And what you want to do is going back to the basic questions from a marketing point of view. What do you want to achieve? How many leads do you want to bring to the door? And how many leads can be handled by your sales? And how many could you convert toward that? And then once you know how many leads you want to bring, then you start doing your analysis job. So where do this lead will come from? Marketing campaigns, and okay, from which my marketing campaigns? Is it to product 1, product 2, product 3 that we have? Because sometimes you have more than one product, so you need to divide this, and then you need to make sure that you understand where this goes and who is the population behind. So you need to understand who are you selling it to. So that's very important. The measurability in terms of your goals, again, is how can you take the progress in terms of going through your goals. And that from a marketing point of view is, again, I know that I need to bring 1,000 leads. So how do I handle that? Who is going to handle that? Through which platforms do I need to bring them? Maybe Facebook will bring me 2. LinkedIn may bring me 100. I don't know, Instagram, depending on the business, may bring me 1,000. So again, what I am going to do with that, so how I'm going to measure them. So these are the KPIs that you're going to put together every time you put a specific things, and the achievable goals for you in terms of doing that is that how do I accomplish that? So again, I'm expecting to have this 1,000 leads. I'm going onto Facebook. I'm having $0 toward any advertising. So should I go for organic? And even organic, should I create the buzz? And how much achievable this would be? So again, it's a very specific things. The relevance, again, from a marketing point of view, based on your plan or your campaign, is the relevance in terms of the social media platform, in terms of the leaflet, or even the offline campaigns that you have been running are relevant to your audience, to your target audience. Because many times I face a lot of questions from business owners or startups or even corporate, and say, okay, we are having I will take the latest example. I work with a Japanese firm who are doing, offering a platforms service for hospital for ICU emergency. So what they did is they put a lot of money into the research, but then rather than that, they haven't done anything. They only did campaign for the doctors. After auditing them, how relevant the campaign and the survey they have done to the doctors was? Zero. Why? Because it's not the doctor who is taking the decision. So all the content that has been created for the ICU platform powered by artificial intelligence was irrelevant to their population, because the purchase department in a hospital is the one who is needed to be convinced with relevant information, with relevant actions toward that. And the last part is the time. Anytime you need to set a marketing strategy, you need to put a time around it, because you can't be putting it just in the air. Putting it in the air is like, okay, I'm taking like a leap of faith. I'm gonna try to see maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. So to kind of make sure that all the goals that you have set up for your marketing action that are specific, that are measurable, that are relevant, and that are achievable for your team or for yourself, need to have a time frame. Otherwise, how do you know it's successful or it's just a failure? I don't like really to use a failure, because for me it's like, it didn't work, so I need to adjust it. I need to understand more my customer behavior. So you need this time frame to make sure that you're getting through that. To go to the next things, again, when we go to marketing, people talk a lot about a lot of things. And excuse me, but for me, when I hear them, I'm having like, let's say, a joke, because everybody's all over the place. But for me, for the last 18 years, I can tell you that there are just 3 goals that you can set up, or at least not set up, but you can kind of work on. The first one is the lead generation. So lead generation, lead acquisition. So what we call is the lead funnel that you're working on, right? And then once you bring these people to the door, then you start improving the conversion, right? So you're kind of taking them to the sales. We're not selling anything yet, or we're not kind of in the sales process. What I call the improvement of the qualified rate, qualification, which means that it also gets inside of the pre-qualification for sure, but the conversion now. And the conversion, what we talk about is sales enabling. Many businesses forget that there is a gap between bringing someone to the door and then convincing them to ring the bell. Once they ring a bell, the sales will open. But still, the sales need to have sales enabling products to offer to this person who is ringing the bell in order for them to explain. And we know that sales, they are all over the place. They can create whatever they want. But the sales enabling need to be done by the marketing, because it's the bridge between what you have been telling them outdoors and all around the world and in your eco-marketing system versus what the sales will end up telling them. And the last goal that many companies also forget to put, or put it under PR or branding, is establishing the company as an industry expert. So that means that you have the branding, the image, the positioning of the brand. This is the equity from a financial point of view. We know that, the equity is one of the most important part of the business. How do you do that? You can't do it within your lead generation, but it has to be a specific goal. Like, let's say I want us to be the next leader of the industry, for example, of cybersecurity. I worked with a company in Israel in the last 2 years, and that was the first goal. It's like, we would like to be the leading, but where? In the industry. Okay, but then we start niching down. What do you really mean? Because it's a big thing, cybersecurity. Oh no, we want to be for the B2B, but the small and medium business who cannot afford to have the same programs as the big corporate. So you see how we're niching down, and then we start working toward this little ecosystem. And then you have, your strategy around it, and then you have your tactics or the planification, and then you have the tracking below that. The last maybe part in terms of when you're setting up your goals, you understanding who is your audience, how you're going to talk to them in terms of content and relevance. You have put KPIs, because even if you're starting from scratch, you have never done KPIs, just put reasonable numbers behind all the actions, because that will help you start tracking what you're doing. And this is, for me, one of the most important aspects, because we all see marketing as a lot of numbers. But what does that mean for whom? So if you are a creator level metrics, so you are the community manager or the social media manager, then you have a specific content marketing, for example, KPIs, the number of engagement, the number of likes, the number of shares, the, on the chatbot that you have put, how many people have interacted. And then you have your top tiers of which content is more relevant to the audience, which social media is more relevant than the others, the organic versus the paid. So then we can go in depth into a lot of things. But when we go into the managerial level, the metrics change because we need to have more information in terms of what the website is telling me, what for example, Facebook campaign is telling. So all the people that came from Facebook, they didn't come to this, to the website, or if they did, they didn't convert. So there is another challenge for the manager to do it, right? I don't know who is could just mute themselves so we can carry on. So that's kind of from a managerial level point of view. But when it comes to the director, metrics, that's another point, because the director will be looking not at the issues, but will be looking at the sales versus the conversion. So what's the marketing contribution? Guys, we are spending 5%, 3%, 10% of our budget. What is the return on investment? What are the costs that for every customers? What is the cost for every leads that we have? Also, are we reaching our target in terms of the number of leads, converted lead, pre-qualified leads, target audience, conversion, in terms of the sales approach? And that's a totally different game. So you need to make sure that which level you're in, so you can set up the right metrics. So you can set up the right metrics for your team, for yourself, for the department, because if you're a director level, you will be interacting with the product, you will be interacting with the sales, you'll be interacting with finance. So your dashboard needs to have a more specific information. If you are more managerial level, you have a dashboard about the challenges, the increase, for example, of the ranking of your website, the challenge of the your user experience or the interface. So you have take it like, someone is just working on the ground. So the creator level are the people hands-on on the ground. And then you have the managerial level, the people who are just kind of having an airline. So they are the pilot of the of this airline. So they kind of going through and they can have a 30,000 view. The director level is the guy on the sky. So they are above everything and they see the whole planet. And they're like, okay, I think that we need to move toward this with the planet. We are closer to the sun, we're far further from the sun. So this is kind of, the conversation that, you should be having maybe with your team or with your peers to understand how you can make this up. So saying that, I think that takes me to one of the most important aspect, which is all the challenges that all the brand on social media. Specifically, I'm talking today about this because people are focusing a lot of times on digital marketing, and you will see that because you don't have relevant content, you don't know your audience very well, you are not positioning your brand the way it should be, you haven't done a good auditing, your team is not very good. I mean, again, these are all the things where brand spend a lot of time, a lot of money building their social media, and then the people are unfollowing them. So it's just put yourself in the person's shoes. Talk to them the way that you will be talked to, not what you're selling them, but what they need, what you can fill the gap with your product, with your service. Again, I'm just taking an example that I always use, and I'm sure that some people will know it since I have run workshop in their businesses, is that a cupcake, you're selling a cupcake. So you have a shop with cupcakes, bakeries, but what you're selling is not cupcakes, you're selling moments of life, birthday for their kids, birthday for parents, for girlfriend or boyfriend, for anniversaries, for let's say success, for graduating universities, schools, having a new job, getting a new flat or new house. So all this moment need to be celebrated with a nice cake. So this is what you're selling them. You're not selling them just a cake. Another example with airlines. British Airways, Delta Airlines, French Airlines, they're not selling only ticket, they're selling you holidays back to visit home for family and gathering, going, on a honeymoon, having a city break just to kind of refresh, having a romantic getaway. So you see how the perception of feeling the consumer needs rather than just pushing your product will make your brand stand out. So this is kind of, in a nutshell, let's say, what I wanted kind of to go through. And just before we finish, these are few marketing tools to track, because when we talk about tracking, I kind of come across a lot of challenges. Many people, for example, will tell me, oh, my website, how do I track? I go to Google Analytics and it's a lot of data. You need to ensure that you're not reading all the data on Google, because it's a lot and it's not all relevant to you. But you need to read the right data, like, what do you want to improve with your user experience? That people stay more, that people convert, that they kind of go to what you're asking them to do. So you need to ensure that you understand what you're looking for when you're tracking. And that goes back to what we said at the beginning, which is set up your actions and set up KPIs. I want more people to come, for example, to my website, and I have an e-commerce platform. I want them to buy. So if I look onto the Google Analytics, I will see a lot of new visitors versus the old ones. So I want to increase, for example, the all new visitors. So that's why the metrics I'm going to be looking at. But meanwhile, I'm going to make sure that when these new visitors, they will, for example, instead of staying 10 seconds and bouncing back, I'm going to increase the time. And increasing the time means that you are reworking on your page, that you're making more content relevant to them, making the user experience when they come onto the web page more relevant so they engage with you. So rather than, for example, bombarding them with a lot of white papers, you can put a video, you can put you set up a small short video to explain in 5 seconds what you do, why they need to buy this product. If it's an affordable, quick one for B2C consumer, yes. If it's just more complex, you can, request from them just to kind of leave their name and email, and then you can give them a free session of 30-minute or 15-minute talk to take them through your demo product, or you can give them free auditing for whatever, things they are requesting from a service point of view. So that's how you, from a user experience website, this is how you can make an improvement onto that. But you need to make sure that you're looking at the right data. On the top of Google Analytics, I'm also recommending, for example, to go to Hotjar, or even the emotional marketing value, which also gives you a lot of information, because we can see on Google Analytics they haven't improved the fact that someone is bouncing from one page to another. They're not making a correlation, or they don't link it, like they came from this to this. And this kind of new tools are reading this data and they are really tracking your result. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, it's not working. No, it does work, but sometimes because you have taken people to the other page, or something happened when they were looking, so then they're converting more into one of the page rather than the one that you thought was not working. So that gives you more insight on how really the user experience and the interface could be improved in that way. So the other thing also, when we talk about tracking, when you start setting up, when we talk, for example, again about the website, I want my website to be number one organically, which means from search engine optimization. You need to audit your website. So for example, SEMrush are quite good, but you also have so many others. You have HubSpot who can do that. You also have Mango tools that can do that. So you have many also free or paid tools that you can go SEO ranking. But the aim is to also put a tracking KPI around that. What I mean by that is, I want to be number one. Okay, my website is, you have like 100 pages, you may have 30 pages. So you need to decide which page you want to rank first. So do I want, for example, my main page, my second page, etc. And you kind of take the steps to make it happen, because you can't have the whole website being overnight. It's a work in progress. So you need to have this KPIs quite clear, and these tools will help you ensure that you are understanding that, for example, from an SEO point of view, you have all the keywords that the people are looking on Google or any other search engine. And remember, now the words are not the only searchable items, you also have pictures. So make sure that your pictures or the any things that you put on your website are also ranked, or at least noted as a keywords and tagged this way. Otherwise you can miss opportunity to being seen by people. So that's also another way. And of course, if you are using any social platform like anyone else in the business, you have a lot of trackable system that you can plug to understand the emotional triggers for the people that you're targeting, and you understand how you can track them and monitor them and even predict what could be the best emotional content that will work for them, and make sure that they engage with you, they follow you, they share, they tag their friends and everything. But the most important things is that you know which action you're taking, and you're putting, first of all, a key performance indicator. And what that mean by that? Just a simple example. You are just starting a business and you are opening this Facebook page or this Facebook group, and your target is, for example, to sell more, etc. So this is the overall target. But for this specific group or page, your KPI is to increase, for example, from 0 to 100 by 30 days. So this is your KPIs. And the tracking is every day. It's not like once every time. It's really every day. I posted that. How many people did interact? How many people did engage with me? How many people did that? Because every day is a learning curve. Every day you need to readjust, and you need to make sure that you're understanding and tuning. Like you're looking for a radio until you stop having the background noise and you're having, the broadcaster talking. The same things. You need to understand where you're going, what you want to do, and then you start tracking and adjusting. It's like also baking. You bake today, you're following the recipe, it's not that great, you kind of improving until you master it. Mastering means that you understand your audience, you understand what trigger their engagement, what they want to do, what they want to look for, what they read. So you really kind of, I'm not going to even say like engaging a customer. For me, it's building a community, building your tribe around this. So that's a very important, let's say, aspect of setting up a marketing strategy, because without setting up your initial goals and your KPIs behind, and then tracking them and adjusting them in progress, this will not, you will fail at some point, and we have seen many businesses do that. So this is very important aspect to go through. So I think that I kind of tried to cover as much I could, because I think that every slide I have presented so far, we can take an hour session for each to go through, but the aim is just to kind of give everybody a big picture, or at least some hints or tips to go further. And I would like just to open this to some questions. I don't know, I'm